Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we decided that with it being, the end of August here coming up, we wanted to do our final offseason predictions for the final dominoes that are kind of hanging out there right now across the NBA, from the restricted free agents to some of the unrestricted free agents to a final fun prompt that I have that we'll kind of dive into a little bit at the end. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? Tonight is my fault. Tonight is my fault for us being late. And I love my football players. I love coaching football. I love being a teacher. But sometimes kids' understanding of time and that I'm adult, that has other things outside of that place, gets lost on them as much as I love them. So I got done with practice at 6. I walked in my house at 6:45. That's how long it took them to get out of the locker room and do all of their stuff and everything they needed to do. And of course, we can't let them be unoccupied in the locker room, and that falls on me. So tonight was on me, everybody. I apologize.
Yeah, we're a good hour late. Like this is closing in on a record for us. Like we're typically late for people that watch the live show, and don't wait for us to have the podcast feed go up. Shout out Andrew, but. This was closing in, man. I love it. We're making the people build the anticipation.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So
usually it's you. Usually it's you. I just want to be clear, but tonight it's definitely me. And you're right. This may be a record, which is very disappointing for me.
To be clear, it's always me. Like full scale, like the ADHD. Like, oh yeah, squirrel. Got to go deal with that thing. Oh, shiny object over there. Got to handle this. Oh, I just got a phone call. Like, it's a nightmare. Dealing with my brain as somebody, like, I always have to check in on Andrew because we built out like a schedule for the podcast in probably the end of July. And I think that literally it was totally different. Like the way that the schedule is worked out is like every single show is different from what like the schedule was when we set it in July. Maybe one or two that are the same. And it's just like, oh yeah, this is a catastrophe. Dealing with my brain is something for people.
I love it. I mean, the thing is, the first 6 months we did the pod together, I was like, okay, 6 o'clock, I'm going to be ready at 5:45. Like, don't screw this up. This is like the best opportunity you've ever gotten. Be on time, be ready. And now I was like, 6 o'clock. All right, I'll go on a walk at 5:50. By the time I get done with that, take a shower, make a coffee, 6:30, Sam will be like logging in and we'll be good to go.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So our goal for today, we want to talk about the final offseason things that we've got hanging out there right now. So we've got some unrestricted free agents. I have a fun prompt that we'll save till the end and kind of explain at the end. But before we do that, I think the biggest things that are out there right now are the restricted free agents, guys like Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kuminga, Cam Thomas, and Quentin Grimes. We've talked about Kuminga a lot, so we'll maybe save him for the end of this, even though he's the one that's kind of the biggest name, I guess, maybe. So, maybe we'll wait, right? Like maybe we'll hang out on that one until the end. But let's start with Josh Giddey, because I think his situation is really interesting and fun. Giddey is a really, interesting player, obviously a very high level on-ball passer creator. The question is he quite good enough to be that passer creator for a genuinely great team? And can he consistently play off the ball? That's the two things that he answers. I got to see Josh work out earlier this week, and very clearly working on like catching and shooting. Like that's a big piece for him, it feels like right now. So We will, we'll see if he can translate it. That's ultimately the key for him. If he can translate that, he becomes a guy that's worth a ton of money, in my opinion. But until he proves that, I think that proves that he can get closed out on consistently and make defenders rotate out to him consistently, thus allowing him to get into the paint and continue to take advantage of his passing ability. I think there might be some questions. Also, doesn't help that Oklahoma City traded him and won the title this year, but he did close the season incredibly well. A guy that once they traded Zach LaVine really came on at a substantial level. You can look at the numbers from basically, I would say, February 2nd onward. He averaged 20 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 8 assists, which is fucking bonkers, guys, over the course of his final 25 games. Shot 49, 45, and 80 from the line. That 3-point percentage was on 4.5 attempts per game from three. So let me start here. If I was his representation and I have averaged 14 points, 7.5 rebounds, 6 assists versus 2.7 turnovers, shot 46, 33, 76. Based off of current contracts league-wide, I would absolutely be asking for $30 million a year. That's just the reality. Like, statistically, he is those are numbers that get paid $30 million a year. Like, Emmanuel Quickly is getting paid what, like $35 million a year, 32.5. It's in that ballpark. 32.5. And the year before he signed that deal, he averaged 17, 4, and 5, right? And shot the ball better, which is a critical thing, and he's a little bit better defensively, but like that's a big number. And you can look at, Jalen Suggs, totally different player, but like worse numbers, drastically better on defense, obviously. Like, the issue for teams right now is that I think teams are looking at these contracts and saying that they are among the least valued in the league. And on top of it, with all of these situations, it goes without saying that there is an immense leverage imbalance here because nobody has cap space league-wide right now. So I guess that where I will start this for you is, how does this get done is my question. Like, to me, this feels like by far the most likely to just be like, look, it feels like it's going to be Chicago, right? Like, it feels like he should stay in Chicago. They traded Alex Caruso for him. Really valuable asset. He played exceptionally well down the stretch for them. There's just a lot of synergy to keep him in Chicago and to continue to let this build and grow. He's still incredibly young. Like, I think that that's what people really don't understand. Like, Josh Giddey is still 22 years old. Like, he is so young and has played 4 years in the NBA already. There's got to be a middle ground here somewhere. And I feel like it's going to be with the Bulls. I don't have that yet, I guess.
I mean, that was going to be my answer. Is I think how we get there is both sides give a little. And I think both sides probably have a motivation to do so. I think if you're Josh Giddey's side, that you just have to look at locking in the type of money. It'd be interesting to see what number you came up with. But like the number I ended up at is a pretty big number still. If you're the Bulls, you have to be motivated because at the end of the day, the guy you traded for him to the Oklahoma City Thunder that won the NBA championship was a huge part of that run. Like everything we said when that trade happened is kind of how it played out. Like Giddey probably, played more minutes and, we were more positive on that deal when it happened for Chicago than I think a lot of people were. We still thought that like this what's happening right now was ultimately the issue of this deal for Chicago. But like, the player, like, we thought that it's fine to get this player for Alex Caruso. I think what's hard for Giddey is kind of the stuff you outlined is how do you pay a player when you don't know exactly what their role is? there's no questioning he's a productive NBA player at this point, right? You just outlined the numbers. And even in Oklahoma City, he had a year where he averaged 16 and a half points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and less than 3 turnovers. The 3-point percentage going up while on higher volume is really encouraging. And that's what makes this tough, because if you're Giddey, you're saying, I'm still an ascending player that, based on my 3-point percentage and my game, I can be part of a winner, like, because I don't have to play on the ball all the time. If I was Chicago, I think it might have more to do with the other end of the floor as well. Like, how far can he get defensively to make me feel good about that? But these are the type of players that it's hard. This is why 3 of these guys, I understand why they don't have a deal in some way. And the 4th guy, I don't, because I feel like I know exactly who Quentin Grimes is and who he isn't, and kind of what his role is. With these other 3 guys, I think there's to use your term, a bigger delta. And I do think the delta of what Josh Giddey is can be quite large, because it's, what is the role? Can he play off the ball? Can you play him defensively? What does that all mean on a team that's just kind of competing? What does it mean on a title contender? There's all of those things. But at the end of the day, I do think that this is the one where I came to the number the quickest, while also acknowledging that that will require both sides to give a little bit.
So what I think makes sense here is, I think that it depends on structure to me, right? Like, if I'm Giddey, do I just prefer a 3-year deal if they're not going to give me $30 million a year, right? If I am Chicago, am I holding firm at doing a 4-year deal? Like, I want him for 4 years. The other thing with Giddey worth remembering here is the age again. If it's a 4-year deal, he's still hitting free agency again at 26 years old.
Yeah.
So, like, will still be incredibly, incredibly young. Like, Cam Johnson didn't hit free agency basically until he was 27, I think. Right? So, like, he will be younger than Cam Johnson was the first time Cam Johnson hit free agency, basically. So it's complicated by that as well. Giddey doesn't really need to go shorter to re-enter the market.
Yeah.
Like, if he goes 4 years, he's just re-entering the market at a really high level anyway. Like, he's re-entering the market for 4 years, 27, 28, 29. So 3 years of, pre-30 production, right? Like, pre-age 30 production. What you said you have the number. What is your number here?
I just wrote down 4 for 100, and I feel like that's Giddey giving a little bit. The Bulls coming up, I think, whenever I looked at kind of what some of the reports were. But to me, I think that's manageable if you're Chicago. And if you're Giddey, you can say, I got 9 figures. Like that. That's and so, like, that's the number that struck me. Even as opposed to 4 for 90. Well, it's not the same as, that's 8 figures, not 9 figures. But if you're Chicago, maybe you feel like you quote unquote won because you didn't get to that $30 million a year number, and you locked it in for 4 years.
I think 400 makes sense. I would almost want like a mutual option on that.
Sure. So I was thinking club option, but then if I'm Giddey, I'm like, no, screw you. I'm coming down. Mutual option is a little more interesting.
Yeah. Like, I would almost want the ability to get out on like both sides, kind of, after if I'm doing 400, right? But if I'm Giddey, like, I want the full 100. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to play around with that. Like, I don't want to look at this and be like, oh no, like, I'm sitting here, at the end of year 3 and maybe I got hurt or something, and I'm in a problematic situation, right? So Josh has made 27 million already. So, like, he'd be up over 100 if it's, right around 75 million or so. I wonder if the play is something like, this is where I wonder if 3 years like makes sense for everybody. Like, is there just like a higher AAV 3-year deal, like 380 or something, where nobody's locked in? But I don't know. Like, if I'm Chicago, like I don't want to do that. I want to lock him in. For, like, if I'm looking at him as my point guard of the future, like I kind of want that. And then like the other piece of this too is, something that got brought up in the comments. They got burned on the Patrick Williams contract, and they haven't paid Kobe White yet. They can't pay Kobe because his number, I think, is too low comparatively to where his market will be, because you can only rise the salary by like 14%, and he makes or 140%. He makes $11 million a year or so. So I think they're right to haggle on this,
Sure.
and I think they're right to hold the line on this. It's just see, like, this is one that's way more complicated to me than like Cam Thomas, even, because there are a lot of really movable factors here in the negotiation where 30 million might not look great, and then 25 million might not look great for Kuminga or for Giddey, I'm sorry, in a second here. Like, if he averages 20, 10, and 9 again, like he did for the final 25 games, like, it doesn't look great for him. So I don't know what the number is. But like, if I'm Giddey, I definitely want real security here. Like, I want at least 3 years of 25 million or something. But if I'm Chicago, I'm looking at the marketplace and I'm like, who the fuck's going to offer him 20 million right now?
Yeah.
Like, nobody's there to do it. So I get it, but also, if you're Chicago, playing this out, right, you're theoretically a team that wants to contend this year. And if I'm Giddey, like, I'm probably willing to like just miss games, right? It's not like you're getting fined or anything. Like, you're not under contract. So I'm probably willing to like sit here in restricted free agency even into the season if I have to, and be like, well, okay, Chicago, you want to win games. You don't have enough margin for error to actually like make the play in and not have Josh Giddey for 10 games this year, probably. So I wonder if that deadline kind of comes in and becomes a real factor here.
Yeah, it is. The restricted free agency thing is so fascinating because of the leverage it does give the team, because, and we'll talk about it with these other guys in terms of what the qualifying offer is and what it means to try to play on that. And it's such a huge bet, a 1-year bet on yourself in regards to that. I continue to go back to that number and just feel like, man, that it's a big number for a guy who, like you said, I mean, at the end of the day, Giddey still got traded away from a team that went on to win the title without him. Like, I mean, the way it played out the year before, they made the move, and it ended up being a smart move. As productive as he is and all of the compliments we've given him, and rightfully so, it was the sample size was really good last year, but it was a small sample size. And so maybe you're right, Sam. Maybe it is. Maybe Giddey does just decide he wants a shorter deal, thinks he's really going to, if he really pops, and then, he gets to hit the market again and, look for an even bigger payday. But I just think at the end of the day, if Chicago was willing to come up a little bit in regards to that, turning down something with the total value of something like that, I mean, it's such life-changing money that it would be hard to turn down. But I understand these guys when they want to bet on themselves and the shorter deal and all of that.
So I bring all of this up to say, like, I kind of played devil's advocate with you on the number, right? I had the exact same number. I think 400 is probably the play here for everybody. Like you said, he gets to say, I have 9 figures. I have 127 million locked in the bank. Nobody can take that from me at that point. Chicago still has real upside on that deal if he continues to develop as a shooter and continues to develop on defense. The other thing I will say on Giddey is, like, his defense gets hit a lot, right? Like, people will bring that up. I don't think it is as catastrophic as others do. He is very big.
Yeah.
Like, being 6'8" gives you so much flexibility to be able to, like, play him against weaker opponents, frankly. And just gives him a lot of leeway when he's like playing in recovery and things like that, right? Like there are things he has to work on, like getting through screens and being able to do things, right? Like I would like to see him more than anything continue to develop as a shooter, which we saw late in the year where he just like got smoldering hot and extremely confident, and he drilled 38% on the hole from 3 this year on 278 attempts. I would like to see him solidify that at the end of the day.
Can I throw out a wild comment and just see what you think? Mm-hmm. Is there any like from the player perspective? I'll just be honest. Like if I'm Giddey, I don't know that I want to be in Chicago based on how this organization has done things.
So I disagree with this, but I understand where you're going with it.
Is there any thought process? It just kind of popped in my head, and so I'm sure you're going to talk me out of it. Is there any thought process to signing a contract that's more tradable so that you can get out of there and go to somewhere else that is potentially more favorable?
I think 25's pretty tradable, but more than anything,
no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like is that would you be a little bit more willing to come down? Because like if Giddey signed 4 for, let's go outrageous, 4 for 140, right? That's not getting traded.
5 140.
Okay, there, sure. That's not getting traded. Agreed?
No, that's a deal that has some downside, and I think
correct.
Would be very wary.
So if I'm Giddey, is there any ounce of, you know what? I'll go 4 for 100 because part of me doesn't mind if I'm a tradable asset in contract because then I can go get to an organization that I would rather play for anyway. Or is that completely asinine way of thinking?
I think if I'm Giddey, I want to get to run the show for somebody. Like I think that's where I'd be right now. Like,
and Chicago's letting you run the show.
Really get a chance to be like, okay, I am the point guard here. I have the ball in my hands all the time. I just went on a 25 game stretch where I averaged 20, 10, and 9 or whatever it was, right? Like if I'm in his head right now, I'm thinking I've proven on some level by getting them to the play-in that I deserve to have the ball in my hands. And I think that that's where I would be. I would want to have the ball in my hands and prove that I can be that guy.
I guess I'm saying that as well. So like I'm not saying trade right now. I'm saying like 18 months from now, maybe 12 months from now. Like let's say he goes out and does 20, 10, and 9 this whole year. Like that's that's an insanely valuable contract player, you know.
So this is one of those things that you and I think about as being interesting, and I think it's one of those things that players just can't think about.
I agree. I couldn't help but it couldn't help but pop into my head. It's probably stupid. I don't think you can really do it. It was something I thought about as like, man, he signs 4 for 100 and balls out this year. We're going to be talking about him on every potential trade target episode we do.
Yeah, it's possible, but like I think that you got to have like 10 toes down where you are kind of thing to be successful at the end of the day. You can't be looking at it and being
That's
like,
100%.
oh, I'm trying to get traded.
100%. That's true. That's fair.
Is the reality.
Yep. I knew you'd talk me out of it.
Yeah, but look, 400 is the number I came up with. I think it's a win for everybody if he gets 400. But again, if I was his representation, I understand wanting a little bit more than that. Like maybe it's 4-105, maybe it's 107 or something like somewhere in the 4 for 100-ish ballpark feels right to me.
Yep.
Okay. Before we move on, we got to shout out our friends over at Square. Square is your all-in-one business partner, making your day-to-day easier. From point-of-sale systems and payments to inventory and customer tools, Square brings everything together in one simple platform. You can stay organized, sell anywhere, and keep things moving. Whether you're running a cafe, salon, boutique, or something entirely your own, Square gives you the flexibility to grow at your own pace and even set up an online store in just a few clicks. Look, I went out to the market last weekend, bought my wife an orchid, went out and got a couple of pastries and things like that. It felt like every place I went to was using Square for their just point of sale business. It was super easy. You just tap your card, and it is unbelievable how simple Square makes it, both for the seller and for the person consuming and buying things. It's so easy to use. It's flexible for any kind of business, be it that farmer's market like I was at, or some beautiful pop-up art gallery like some people like to attend as well. Square adjusts to what you need as a business. You can sell in person or online from one location or several. It allows all major credit cards or payment methods, including Apple Pay, so checkout is fast and easy. Square keeps up so you don't have to slow down. Get everything you need to run and grow your business without any long-term commitments. And why wait? Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/game theory. That's SQUARE.com/GO/game theory, GAMETHEORY. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today. Okay, so Bryce, let's go to Cam Thomas next.
Okay.
So, introduction to the player that is Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas, over the last 2 years, has averaged a little over 23 points. 22.9 points on 44, 36, 86 with 3 rebounds and 3 assists. True shooting percentage this season was about league average in 25 games. The year before, it was 4% under league average. So not a wildly efficient scorer necessarily, or at least not proven in that way, in part because of shot selection, I would argue. I don't think that Cam Thomas is a deficient shooter in any way. I think, in fact, he's probably a genuinely awesome shooter. It's just that he takes a lot of incredibly difficult shots.
Yeah.
Tough defender, let's go with. Not great on that end. Really frustrating. I think has a tendency to really dribble the ball and can lead to a situation that can be kind of stagnant offensively in a way that can be a little bit frustrating to watch from time to time. Where are you on this situation? Because I genuinely struggled immensely and ultimately kind of came to a thought where I typically don't like to go, but I will be interested to hear where you're at. There was a report, earlier today, it's worth noting that, where was this? It was from Jake Fisher, where he said, Cam Thomas's decision seems to be between taking his qualifying offer, a 2-year deal with a team option that is north of the qualifying offer from Brooklyn, somewhere around $14 million a year. So like 228 is what they're offering. For what it's worth, my colleague over at The Athletic, Matthew Katz, aka Fred, he mentioned that when he surveyed his 16 folks across the league, that they had him right around between 20 and 30 million a year, but for that same 2-year deal, they wouldn't want more than 2 years on Cam Thomas.
I feel like we've been talking about that throughout this entire conversation. I mean, I think you were the first one that brought that up whenever we were talking about, like, hey, let's go to a shorter term deal.
Yeah.
30 million would be a little rich for me, but you could talk me into 2 for 40. You could talk me into 2 for 50. I think, Sam. I think I could do that with where Brooklyn is at. This is going to be a longer rebuild. I do think having a score like that is beneficial, even with the youth movement, because again, one thing I've learned, whenever you slot people into larger roles than what they're ready for, you actually find out less about them than you would otherwise. And so I think having that volume score that Cam Thomas is actually is beneficial to some of these guys, even though I know people will scream like, he has the ball in his hands all the time, all of that. I get it. So I would be palatable to that if I was Brooklyn. That's what I would be putting on the table. If he wasn't willing to take 2 for 50 or whatever, then I don't know. My prediction, are we ready for the prediction yet, or we want to talk first?
Give me your prediction.
I think he plays on the qualifying offer.
Okay. So that was my immediate thought, but I think that I've kind of sold myself a little bit differently on it the more I've thought about it.
Okay.
So if you're Cam Thomas and they have 228 on the books, right, for you, and you're trying to decide between taking $6 million next year, which is what his qualifying offer is,
correct,
or 14 next year, or 15, whatever it is. Say you can even get it up to like 230 or something like that, right? You've only made, so Josh Giddey has made almost $30 million, right?
Yeah.
Cam Thomas has only made 10.5 so far because he went drastically later in that draft. And, you know, people on the outside can look at it and go, oh yeah, Cam Thomas has made 10 million. Like that's still a lot of money, but you know, taxes takes half of that. And, you know, there are different fees that I'm sure he's paying kind of across the board. If he's handled his money right, he's probably got a few $1 million in the bank, right? Like maybe, you know, 4 or something. So including assets and everything like that. So that's not like crazy life change. I mean, it's life-changing money for most people, but like in the NBA, that's not life-changing money by any stretch of the imagination.
There's a difference between $30 million and $10 million. We've had this conversation. There's a difference between those two numbers.
There's a massive difference between 14 million and 6 million for Cam Thomas. Like
Cam Thomas
would be making 60% of what he's made so far throughout the course of his career versus 140% of what he's made already.
Yeah.
And if you're Cam Thomas, to me, and I'd be frustrated with Brooklyn for sure. Like I totally get it. I think that what I would want is probably, you know, a significant amount of money, given that, and like the way that it's being reported, I've seen some people report that like he thinks he should be getting like Tyler Hero money and thinks he should be getting, you know, $30 million a year. And like, he just hasn't proven that in any way, shape or form to this point. Like that piece of it's somewhat delusional. Nowhere near as good of a passer, not as good of a decision maker. I would argue he's a worse defender than all these guys like Quickly and Hero and those guys. So, you know, is what it is. I would want as much money as humanly possible this year. I do think I would want it to be a 2-year deal, and I think I'd only be offering 2-year deals. But if it's only a 2-year deal, if you're Cam Thomas that's getting offered, I think you just take the money at the end of the day. And yes, like you might be locking in for a second year at like 15 million or whatever, but I'm pretty okay with that actually.
So,
and like, you know, if I'm, maybe I'm not locked in and I'm only getting, you know, 14 million, but if I'm not very good this year anyway, then playing on the qualifying offer is a terrible idea because I'll only make 6 million and I won't have any market value, or won't have a ton of market value coming off of it. But if I'm only locked in for one more year on top of this at 14 million or 15 million or whatever, and then I'm hitting free agency. And again, Cam Thomas is still quite young. Like he is still just 23, about to turn 24. Like he'd be hitting free agency at 26, right? Or 25 realistically into his 26-year-old year. I would want the flexibility to be able to hit free agency sooner while also being able to like find real money. What I would really like if I'm Cam Thomas is, could I get the team option taken off of that deal?
Sure.
I would be pretty okay with like 230. But I wonder if that's the breaking point here. Can we do 230 without a team option where in year one I take the bigger number up front and then it actually descends? And that would allow Brooklyn to be able to trade him into somebody's mid-level exception next summer. If you keep it below that, like, you know, $15 million marker or so, you would be able to then trade him into somebody's mid-level exception if you need to get off of the money for whatever reason.
What would the number have to be for you to still allow the club option? If Brooklyn was like, nope, we want the team option.
I would want a good deal more than what they're offering.
So like,
it's a team option.
Okay, 240 club option.
Yeah, I would do that for sure. if I was Cam Thomas.
I think
you're literally doubling your net worth at that point.
Yeah, and so you $20 million is 3 times plus more than what the qualifying offer is, and then even if they, if you don't play well, they don't exercise it. I think for me, it would really be, and listen, look, we can all be, his agency, his representation has a gauge of what NBA teams think about him outside of Brooklyn. And so as an unrestricted free agent, right? Whenever he's a restricted free agent, that is different than, but point being is, can he get the money back? If he goes out and balls out on the qualifying offer this year, averages whatever a game, shows he's this level of scorer, maybe improves a little bit, what is the market to make back the money that he's turning down here in year one? I think it's vital that the representation knows what that market is and has kind of looked ahead to who has cap space, who would be interested, and is that contract going to be out there? Because what you can't have happen, Sam, is you play on the qualifying offer, you play well, but you still have the label of bucket getter that doesn't translate to winning, and you go out and sign a
mid-level
exception deal, and you took a risk for no reward. That's what is catastrophic. Even if the money breaks even, well, you took a risk with no upside, and that's what you cannot do if you're Cam Thomas.
See, and that's what worries me if I'm Cam Thomas here. Like, I don't think Cam Thomas thinks of himself this way. Like, I think he thinks of himself as like, hey, Jalen Green just got a 3-year, $100 million deal, like, with a player option. Why am I not getting that? Right. But given the situation he's in, what my theory would be if I was him is, okay, let's say I don't improve on defense. Look, like, again, NBA players don't think like this, so it's really hard. But if I was his representation, maybe I'd be looking at it as like, okay, maybe he doesn't improve on defense this year and continues to like dribble the air out of the ball at times negatively, despite being like I am somebody that genuinely thinks Cam Thomas like might be one of the 15 most talented scorers in the NBA. Like, his ability to get to his spots, play off 2 feet, consistently get into difficult shots and make difficult shots. If he would adjust his decision-making tree a little bit and take fewer difficult shots and consistently pass and play make in a better manner, not just like a okay manner, because I think he showcases some vision from time to time. I think he like really needs to be willing to make those passes at a higher level. I would be looking at it and thinking, I can go out and make a bunch more money, but that's not the reality. It's not the situation that Brooklyn is in. It's not the situation like Houston was in, right, with Jalen Green, where they were looking at acquiring somebody via trade. So like a big part of their calculus was, let's get Jalen Green on this $30 million number that we can potentially move for a star at some point. And Brooklyn is looking more at just staying hyper flexible with all of their, books being completely clear because they're not contending right now. So the Jalen Green situation is just like totally different from what the Cam Thomas situation is, right? I would take like a 2-year, $30 million deal if I'm Cam Thomas. And I would hope that I would hold out that the team option is not there. If they said no to that at 30, oh man. That's where it gets hard for me. That's where it gets really, really hard for me. Because if I'm Brooklyn, like, and I think that I can move him into somebody's mid-level exception next summer, and he's willing to do 230 without a team option, I'm probably okay to do that, honestly, because it's just not a long, it's not a long enough deal to like really hinder me long term.
Yeah,
I think you're going to be able to move like a $14 million deal into somebody's space next summer, if you really have to, for Cam Thomas, who's on a 1-year deal, who we know can score the basketball. I think that I would be willing to do 230 without a team option if I'm Brooklyn. I think that it will settle at 2 years in the $30 million ballpark. And the push point for me is just whether or not it has the team option.
that makes sense. I'll stay with my qualifying offer.
Yeah. I think there's a chance he does it. Like, he is somebody that I think is like wired to where he could bet on himself and play the qualifying.
So that's my impression. Like I don't know Cam Thomas. I've never interviewed him. I haven't, I don't have sources around the league to ask. Just like of these four guys, he was the one that was like, yeah, he seems like a dude that would definitely bet on himself and just say, screw it. I'm going to play on the qualifying offer. I'm going to go get buckets, and then I'm going to, hit unrestricted free agency. So,
yeah, I get it. I think that's like a very possible outcome. If I'm him, I would want the real money, though. And if I'm his representation, I'm just pushing for like, we will do this, but you have to get rid of the team option. We'll do like 230 or so, and we'll take a higher amount up front, and you can give us a little bit less in the second year so that it fits into a trade exception for somebody for you to trade him to if you need to, right? Or fits into the mid-level exception that most teams will have next summer. Over 15 teams will have in all likelihood next summer, because it's just not a long-term enough deal to where like where if I'm Cam Thomas and I'm like that dude who I think I'm like a bucket getter and I'm going to average 30 a game at some point, I'm going to get paid like regardless. And I'm just like, I want to lock in what I can now.
Yeah.
At the same token. And it's not a long-term enough deal to where like it crushes my market. Like he would have to go out next summer and get at least $25 million a year to make up for
what he's given up
doing the qualifying offer next. Like to me, like that's a big number for like a scorer who doesn't really defend and doesn't pass at a super, super high level. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think I would like to make it so that the team option does not exist. And that's like the negotiation point. And that's where we get to. It just ends up being like 228, 230. It's tradable in the second year. And like, I'm locking in 2.8xing my net worth if I'm Cam Thomas.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go Grimes next.
Okay.
I will say, man, like, I wonder if Quentin Grimes is a little bit wired to do the qualifying offer too, because everything we know about Quentin Grimes has been that the contract that he's asking for has always been very high, which is why he's gotten traded multiple times now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I don't know how much of that's him versus his representation. Like, I'm not totally sure. Right. But I wonder if they're like a bet on yourself kind of vibe operation there with the Quentin Grimes, LLC. But I just think like the easiest thing in the world here is a 3-year deal, like worth slightly more than the mid-level, like do like 350 or something and just call it a day.
Yeah. So I saw like 4 for 67, I think was the number I saw. I wrote like, my notes were, what about a short-term descending contract of some sort? Because you have Maxey, you have Edgecombe, you have Jared McCain. I think keeping Quentin Grimes for the next few years makes sense. But if I'm Philly, I don't know that I'm crazy motivated to keep him long term. So I kind of ended up in a similar spot as you, where 3 for 45, something like that.
350 was my
350. Yeah. I would be all about that if I was Philly. I'm kind of like, he was only in Detroit for not very long. Then Trajan got the job and he got traded. And that was one of the trades that was kind of confusing at the time. But the more you heard, it was like, the contract's coming up. The contract's coming up. The contract's coming up. And it seemed like a real thing. And so maybe you're right. Maybe where I think his archetype and role is the easiest to peg for me out of all of these players. I think. I think I know exactly who he is, where he slots in a rotation, all of that. I think there's less confusion there, or a smaller delta. But for whatever reason, this has been something that's been with him for 12 months, and it's carried over into these negotiations.
Yeah, so the Grimes thing is complicated too, because he had a great close to the year playing on this terrible Philly team.
Yeah.
Averaging 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists on 47, 37, 75. Right. Now he turned the ball over a lot playing on the ball, like more consistently. Like he turned it over 3 times a game. and he's not an on-ball player is the reality.
Yeah.
Like I think that we know that at this point. I thought he was pretty good in Dallas, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like playing the role that he was, like he consistently knocked down shots. I thought he defended at a pretty high level. The Detroit sojourn was just like a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But the second year in New York, I thought was really good too.
Yes.
Like I thought he was excellent that season. I thought he was like on the track to be a top half of the league shooting guard, basically, after that second year in New York. And I still think that like right around like, league average shooting guard is where he can kind of settle in terms of his career. Those guys now get, 17-ish a year. I think if I was Philly, I would be offering probably in the ballpark of 468 and hoping that that's what the number is, something like that. Maybe, right. I would be offering basically like right around what Nickeil Alexander-Walker got would be my kind of read on it, and going from there.
What Na got that?
He got 460. So I guess like even I'm saying offer a little bit more. I'm saying like offer like 464 or so.
Yeah. Okay. I would. I mean, we don't need to get into this. Who would you rather have? I think I like Na more, but I'm a huge Na guy.
It's a good question. I think Grimes has shown a lot more on offense at this point than Alexander Walker has. And I wonder if you up the offense for Alexander Walker, if the defense would drop a little bit more than what we would hope, right? But like comparable players to me.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Very, very, very close. I think I'd probably rather have Alexander Walker, but it's because I think that I could play him at the 1 and the 2 and the 3, and like he would be a bit more of a fit as like a rotational player on a great team. Whereas like, Grimes is interesting. Yeah.
Well, no, it's a good name because it really locks in that number, the range of that number for me. So I feel even better about that range. I think I feel even better saying like I wouldn't go above what the reported number or whatever I read today, like the 4 for 67. Like, okay, like if you want to get to 4 for 70, like that's I'm not getting into like $20 million a year for Quentin Grimes, I guess is what I would say. And so, yeah, I mean, if it's, I again just wonder if you do, even if for Philly, if you want to keep it shorter, like I said, with what they have with McCain, obviously Maxey, now that you can't play them and VJ, now that, Grimes can scale, down, whatever, and you can play 3 of those guys together, but you have a little bit of leverage there, feeling pretty good about that trio of those young guys. You have a lot of team control over their contracts. So if you ended up needing to go shorter, if Grimes wanted to do a 2-year, like, would you do a 2-year deal if you're Philly? Like if Grimes was like, I just want 2 years so I can get back on the market.
I would probably, like, it's weird. Like the way I'm thinking about this is almost like a parabola in terms of like the amount I'd be willing to pay him. If it was a 2-year deal, I would want to go like right around 15 a year probably. If it was a 3-year deal, I might go up to like 16 to 17. Okay. And if it's a 4-year deal, I'd want like, 16, like,
back down a little
between
bit.
15 and a half and like 16 a year. Right. So
that's what's hard about a 2 years. A 2-year deal, I'm not offering him more per year. Like I'm not going to go 2 for 40 just because it's a 2-year deal. I'm not going to, like I still want to keep it in that 15 to 17 range.
Right. And the reason that I kind of say that in terms of the, 3-year deal being the one I'd be willing to pay most is that I think that there's like just enough upside on that deal, having him for 2 years to where I'm pretty safe if it doesn't go super well for whatever reason, right? Or if VJ just flat out beats him out, right? Yeah. And it's just like, oh shit, VJ has to play. And now shit, we're stuck with Quentin Grimes playing, 20 minutes a night or whatever. Because McCain and VJ are just studs and like we can't keep them off the court, right? But I think that 2 years, there's just not enough value because then you'd be trading him as a like expiring deal, right? And he wouldn't bring back a ton of value. And then at 4 years, you're taking on some risk at the end of the day if he's like, ends up getting beaten out by VJ, right? So I think at 3 years, again, like 3 years, 50 feels like the right answer to me.
I like
for
that.
This. Like 348, 350, like somewhere in that ballpark.
I like that. I like that. That wasn't, I had 4 years, I had, like I said, the 4 year deal. I kind of thought about a 2 year, but yeah, a 3 year deal. And I think I even had written descending, just looking at like where they're at with the aprons and stuff like that. I thought maybe looking at their books, they would be able to do that, where they could front load it, descend it out, and just kind of plan on not extending off of it or anything like that. So a 3 year descending or something. I kind of like the thought of that.
Yep. Okay. The final guy here is Kuminga. And I don't know that I need to talk for 10 minutes about Jonathan Kuminga because we literally just did like a massive, like long breakdown on the Kuminga situation.
Yeah.
We talked about the 245 thing, if I remember correctly, right? Like that was a thing that we did.
Yeah.
So like, again, like I just don't know that I need to like get the takes out about Kuminga.
Yeah, we did 32 minutes.
More about this?
Yeah, for the like, if people want the Kuminga, we did 32 minutes 2 weeks ago. Yeah. It's under the videos section. You can go find it. Has actually done really well, but I still said traded to the Kings. Like, I guess I'm just going to continue to live in that world that he's not on the Warriors because I feel like the Warriors don't value him and it doesn't make sense. It seems like that is cool though, Sam, that I just wonder if whenever we get closer to it, if that's fancy, look at you. If whatever that first round pick protections, no protections, whatever gets to a point where both teams can agree to it. Like if that was truly the holdup was protections versus no protections, I wonder if conversations can pick back up at a certain point and it ends up getting done.
I also wonder that too. Having said that, I know that they're like threatening to take the qualifying offer or whatever, and that like they're decided on the 245 not being good enough. 22 million or whatever that number is a shit ton of money for Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah. Like
this is not 14 million where they're offering like slightly more than what, the mid-level is. They're offering him real money.
Yeah.
By NBA standards. Like they're saying, look, like we will give you 22 a year, but it's only going to be for 1 year. That is so much more than what his qualifying offer is. Like it is so much more. I get that he doesn't want to play like in a situation where it's a little bit complicated and that like he then doesn't control the next 2 years of his life, but it's only 2 years versus 1 year is the reality. And if it was like 3 years and they're offering, not crazy money or whatever reason, and they're like really playing hardball, I would be like, you know what? Like, I understand that the qualifying offer here is like a real option for Kuminga. But again, the thing that he has to really consider here is if he takes the qualifying offer, he already doesn't really work, in my opinion, with what they have in the starting lineup with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. Like it's hard to make that fit work, in my opinion. I would not be enthusiastic about doing that. So to me, if I'm him, I just kind of have to take the money. And I think he ends up, maybe it's like 250, maybe he gets like a little bit more, and it's a team option.
Yeah, it is. Again, we go back to it that the qualifying offer is right around 8. So the difference between 8 and 25. And as you pointed out with Cam Thomas, if you bet on yourself, when you go out and get that contract the next offseason, it's got to start at a real number to make up for the money that you left on the table. And again, I think this is another situation where you have to know what the market is, know what money's out there. Do the right teams have the money that need your services? And so it's a real bet on. I understand this is a business. I think we had a commenter bring this up. I do kind of find myself feeling bad for Kuminga in this situation because it's like, hey, take this money just so we can use it as a trade number. Like what you're signing up for in terms of that, and you'll have no control over where they end up sending you. But $45 million is $45 million. I mean, I guess it's only 22.5 because
25, right?
Yeah, or 25.
Right.
Yeah, if it ends up being 50, I guess it's not guaranteed because if there's a club option on the second year, it could, not be. But $25 million is real money. It's hard to think that he would turn that down whenever all is said and done. My feeling is like I feel like they're just like hoping the Kings up the offer and make that trade happen.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I guess that I come at this from the perspective of being like a little bit skeptical on Kuminga too, like as a player.
Sure.
Doesn't really pass, not quite as good defensively as what you want for somebody who is as big, long, and athletic as he is. Definitely can score the basketball, like no denials there, but there's just not there's not a wide ranging skill there. Like he's a very skilled scorer and he's a supreme athlete and he's a great transition player. He's developed as a cutter. Like he's a fantastic slasher as well, but you throw in the fact that he's just not a shooter and it gets hairy in a hurry when you're trying to make it work. So I think Kuminga maybe gets like a slight bump on the 245. Maybe it's like 250 or so. And I think that it ends up being right around what that number is. I think he ends up on that deal.
Makes sense. I will stay with traded to the Kings. I'm going to live in that world.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, like, I feel like Golden State wants him as a trade chip potentially. So is it better to have him as a trade chip or is it better to have like the Kings, protected, semi-protected, unprotected first rounder? Probably unprotected is what it would need to be for that to have real value. I don't know. I think that it's still like, if I'm Golden State, I totally get them playing it this way. If I'm Kuminga, I get that I'd be very frustrated with this. This is 1,000% right. We talked about this in the other video.
Yep.
The Warriors have to trade Hield and Moody to like be able to like trade Kuminga right now. You don't have to do that if you wait until mid-season. Yeah, I think I'd just rather have the money to be able to trade. And if I'm Kuminga, like I'm, kind of up shit's creek is kind of the reality.
Yep.
So I think it ends up being right around like that maybe it's a slight bump on 245. Maybe it's like 250 or something. And that's the marker that we get to. But I feel like he ends up, I think I'm back to where Golden State is probably the spot at the end of the day.
Sure.
Okay. Let's get to some unrestricted free agents here.
Okay.
And we'll zoom through this because, like, I don't know that we need to, sit here and go crazy with it. So, like, Al Horford is the biggest name by far. It feels like he's just waiting for the Kuminga thing to get settled out, right? Yep. It feels likely it's going to be Golden State, and we'll see where that goes. It just depends on what the number is, what the money is. I'm sure Horford has basically told them, like, I will take whatever you have left after you handle this situation, which is why I would imagine that they're holding firm at 45 and not going up because they want to pay Horford a certain amount of money, right? I mean, like, Gary Payton feels like that could end up back in Golden State too.
Yep.
Malcolm Brogdon, like, they could use another ball handler in Golden State. Like, I feel like a lot of this is getting held up by Kuminga. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which makes it tricky. Russell Westbrook's probably the other biggest name at least left.
Yeah.
Jake Fisher said like he might be out of the NBA next year. I guess it's not impossible. The thing with Russ that people don't recognize is like Russ is undeniably talented enough to still be in the NBA. Like he's fairly useful basketball player, honestly, still. But when you have Russ in the lineup, a lot revolves around Russ. Like both his strengths as a player, getting up and down in transition and attacking and being able to get paint touches, and the weaknesses in terms of the shooting and in terms of everything like that. So
can I throw out a funny one, a crazy one?
Yeah,
Since
go
you
ahead.
mentioned, I wrote down the Pacers just because of the pace of play. Like if they just wanted to try and win regular season games, I actually don't think this is a good idea, because I don't think bringing in Russ to help you win regular season games is probably what they should do. I just think it would be kind of fun to see him in the system.
I mean, I just think he'd like lose his mind if he sat behind TJ McConnell is the thing. Like, I mean, I'm not opposed, but like, I think it's a good scheme fit. You're right. It's just, yeah, like I don't know that they need the point guard at the end of the day. Even like, I think they're just going to shift Nembhard to point guard and be totally good with it.
So I think 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. Why not back to Denver? Like, I mean, I realize they filled out the roster with like Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr. Is it the Bruce Brown? Like, we can't have Bruce Brown and Russ. I realize they're very different players.
Hard.
Okay.
Yeah, like you can't play both of them together, I think is the problem.
Okay.
And like they played Russ a lot at like that pseudo 4 spot, like,
True.
You know, next to Jamal Murray. And
Deron Holmes is back now this year. Okay. All right. Okay.
So like I don't know that Denver really works. I mean, Sacramento has been rumored here and there with this, right? I mean, it's just the last thing they need is another on-ball player, in my opinion. It is like difficult to find the landing spot. Like that's been that's kind of been my problem in doing this. I kind of was wondering about the Heat. Like, is there, so like we're assuming Davion Mitchell is going to play a real amount, right? Maybe they're worried that Davion is going to be like, you know, maybe he turns back into a pumpkin or whatever, right? On offense, at least. They did just draft Kasparis, but maybe, you know, Kasparis isn't quite ready, you know, for prime time yet. Like you can make that case if you want to. They do have an open roster spot. I don't know what's going on with Terry Rozier. Like that's information that I just don't have that I'm sure that they do have. Maybe there, like that could track if they think Kasparis is not quite ready yet and they think that Rozier is not going to play for whatever reason.
Sure.
Like that's a spot.
Yeah. No, that'd be an interesting one. That would be really interesting to see how Russ fit into Heat culture.
Phoenix. Like, let's just go crazy in Phoenix, right? Shane in the comments brought up Phoenix. That's a fun one. But like Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, a lot of those guys can play on the wing. I would argue that they don't really have a point guard on the roster outside of Colin Gillespie.
Yeah.
So I think that tracks, honestly. Like, I think that you can make a real case for Russ there if they want to like be somewhat competitive.
Sure.
I mean, beyond that, I mean, you just never know what New Orleans is going to do.
Stop. Don't do that. Quit it.
Can I make a case?
No.
Can I make a small case?
No.
So DeJounte's out for a while.
I said no.
Jordan Poole is better as an off guard.
Sam's not listening to me.
Jeremiah Fears is 19, and you might want like, you know, him to be able to play slower and like bring it along a little bit more slowly. And then Alvarado is like a pure backup. I mean, it's a terrible fit with Zion. I'm not sitting here saying this is a good idea. Like, I think it's a bad idea, to be honest. But they don't really have a point guard other than Fears right now. And I don't think Fears is ready to play in the NBA. So
Point Zion's
what we've been wanting for a while. It's just that doesn't feel Joe Dumars-y to me.
God, maybe they should have traded Herb Jones and Trey Murphy the third. Those poor guys.
I mean, the last thing that I see in the comments here, a couple people have brought up the Bucks just continue to accumulate like players like this. I don't think that makes a ton of sense. They have Cole Anthony, Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr. Like they just have a lot of guys.
That was what was interesting whenever I was going through, because I had just the bank of old point guards, Kojo, DeLon Wright, Monty Morris, and as I was trying to come up with teams for them, I thought I was going to say the Bucks, and then as I looked at their roster, I was like, man, they just have a lot of guards that already in the mix. So if you don't add one that's just like unquestionably better than those guys, you're just adding another one to the mix.
So this is one that I thought of that I don't think would happen now, but like, let's say that Russ decides to like wait and like see what happens in the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then sign like in the middle of the year in November or something. What if Minnesota finds out that Rob Dillingham isn't ready, right? Or like it isn't quite there yet. That's actually a pretty interesting spot to me.
So yeah, I have them down as a team for. I mean, I had names for Brogdon, and then it kind of sounds like the Warriors for him. But again, that trio of older vet guards, I had the Wolves down for those guys, and I guess in the same way, then Russ makes sense because, I mean, like you said, what if it doesn't work out in the backcourt? Conley's. What, 38
or so?
38 something, yeah. And like you said, Dillingham doesn't work out. Like that backcourt could get interesting there. They're banking on him still being available and young guys. And while I understand the bet they made, there's a chance it goes south. So
I don't know. I think that's probably the one that tracks to me is Russ in Minnesota.
Sure.
I realized I had the wrong thing up on the screen. Russ should be in the NBA. Sorry about that. I didn't mean that. Russ in Minnesota is the one that, like, if this doesn't work, like I think he should wait. Kind of is where I'm at. Like if I was him, I might kind of hang out until November and kind of see who gets hurt, who needs a point guard. Is there like a real contender that needs a point guard? Because right now, I don't think that any of those teams are going to like really look at him. But if he's patient, like one of those teams might do this. You know what I mean? And like, I've seen people in Australia bring up like, oh, the NBL should go for this. Like a team that needs a point guard in the NBL should sign Russ. Like, absolutely the fuck not. Should Russ be like in the NBL next year? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I love the league. Like genuinely, I love the NBL so much. But Russ, if he waits and is patient, will make $2 million like in the NBA somewhere this year. It's just, I think finding that spot makes sense.
Yeah.
So, okay. Other free agents.
Trey Lyles.
Trey Lyles just feels like, can you get him back on the Pistons?
Listen, so here was my list. I mean, I think he'd make sense on the Warriors. I don't know how many roster spots they have. I had the Pistons. I had the Sixers.
The issue with the Warriors on the roster spot front is, and why Bryce says he doesn't know how many roster spots they have, is that they currently have, I believe, 9 players signed.
Yeah.
And, presumably more on the way, depending on what kind of plays out with Kuminga and Horford and
Gary Payton and Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah.
Like the article I read today didn't mention Trey Lyles, so I assume but it did mention those guys. So I don't know if that was reporting or whatever. So Pistons are a team. I think he makes a ton of sense for Detroit still. When the Javonte Green news came across, no shade at Javonte Green, but I was hoping it was Trey Lyles. Philadelphia, as with Yabusele gone. Orlando.
I like that actually.
Yeah. Orlando kind of, I know they have like Paolo and Franz and they have all these centers, but then like Tristan and those guys play more on like who's the backup 4 there? Like I wonder, there's a lot of guys that can play for that team, but I wonder if that specific role off the bench as the 4-man, is there 15 minutes there in Orlando for Trey Lyles? Do you think?
I think maybe that they just kind of,
with Jonathan Isaac and everybody else.
With Isaac who's flexible. Yeah. Like I think that there are too many things going on there.
the other one was Phoenix then.
Yeah. I like Philly quite a bit actually
Yeah.
on this one. Like a guy that's like a combo hybrid 4-5
Yep.
is kind of something that they don't really have. I think that they're hoping Trendon Watford is this guy for what it's
Sure.
worth. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's what their vision is for Watford. And like honestly, the other guy that like really fits that bill is Jabari Walker, who they have magically on a two-way. And
Two-way.
like I have no idea how the hell that happened.
Hold up.
Like
Amir Coffey got a training camp. It like didn't even get. Can we talk about this one with Milwaukee?
But it's training camp.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I saw he's signing with Milwaukee. I just don't know what the structure of the deal is. It'd be surprising to me if that's like a training camp deal, but maybe it is. Again, like I just haven't asked around and looked into that, so I don't know what it is. Someone asked about Ben Simmons. Does Ben Simmons get a job? I think he's another one that should probably wait for a little while and kind of see what plays out. Wouldn't stun me if somebody signed him. But if I'm him, I've just made enough money to where I get to pick and choose my spot, right? Like, assuming he's handled his money well, and I think that he has, from what I understand. Like, as long as he's handled his money reasonably in any way, he will have, placed enough money in the coffers, so to speak, that, having already made $203 million in his career, another $2 isn't really going to make a difference. He's playing for the love of the game at this point. Like he really needs to, I think, pick and choose the spot.
You're at the Athletic, Eric Neem. God, obviously. Per the league source, it is a training camp deal for Amir Coffey. ESPN was first to report the signing. That was on August 14th. I
trust Eric Neem. Eric Neem is the source for the Milwaukee Bucks. I have full faith. I am a big Eric Neem guy. Love him. Let's see here. Anyone else free agency wise? I mean, like, I guess Bol is a name. Like, I think that's like a training camp kind of deal. Corey Joseph, like, it surprised me a little bit that Corey Joseph doesn't have a gig.
Yeah,
just because
he
started playoff games.
Yeah, Kojo, DeLon Wright, Monty Morris. Just some teams any team that could use some depth, like, fourth point guard. Is there a chance that a young guard on your team, isn't ready? Or like I even thought, like, I had the Cavs here. Like, if you don't believe in, gosh dang it, Craig Porter Jr., just to add depth. I like Craig Porter Jr., but if they, there was just some contenders that if there's not depth or just to add depth, if maybe you're counting on a young guard to really, hold down the fort there.
Yeah. I mean, my team here is the Knicks. Like,
the
Knicks,
they were the first team on that list. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they only have 12 guys signed right now, at least. We'll see if they bring back DeLon Wright, PJ Tucker, Landry Shamet, Campaign. Achua is still a free agent, right? So like they have a lot of, free agents that they could theoretically do, but I think Corey Joseph's better than all of those guys based off of what I saw last year, and I might rather just have Corey Joseph at the end of the day.
Kojo, Pistons legend.
Precious. I mean, do we have any reporting on Precious? I feel like we don't, honestly.
Yeah.
But, he's a guy that should have an NBA job somewhere and be on like a minimum guaranteed deal.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, maybe it's the Knicks, honestly.
Yep.
Again, like just bring him back as another. He's there.
Yeah.
So, anyone else that you look at right now?
I like Delano Banton, but I didn't have I wasn't super strong. Indiana was another one for him. the Wizards, just because I think like Delano Banton scores the basketball pretty well and in his role. And so like, hey, just like go get some buckets for us to help us keep games more competitive. Actually, I put him for the Pelicans also here. And then the Mavs, if they just needed some backcourt depth scoring until Kyrie gets back.
Yeah. Thomas Bryant, I believe, is unsigned still,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yep.
played real minutes in the finals a second ago. So, Thomas Bryant, but, apparently there's some Europe rumors with Bryant out there. Greece was emerged as a name. Panathinaikos was reported 3 weeks ago. So maybe he is just going to plan to go overseas and make a bunch of money, right? We're at that point, though, where some of these guys will probably look at that option pretty realistically, I think.
Sure.
So, okay. Final question here, Bryson. We will get out of here on this. In each of the last 3 seasons, there's been a massive trade between September and training camp. Last year, it was Karl Towns for Julius Randle and stuff. This year, or the year before, it was the Damian Lillard deal, and then followed by the Drew Holiday deal. And then I think people forget the year before, in 2022, the Donovan Mitchell trade happened in September. It didn't happen like in July or August. Like that went into September and eventually got done. Is there a deal out there that you see as like being like league shaking? Because we did not think at this time last year Karl Towns is going to be a New York Knick.
Yeah.
We kind of had an inkling on Lillard and Mitchell, but certainly the Towns thing came out of nowhere, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't see one of that magnitude. The closest name I think would be Lowry, and I don't know that that's happening. Another interesting name, and I don't think this team is going that direction at all right now, but any of the Kings players, like specifically Sabonis or Levine, I just don't know that that's where they're going to go. I think it's going to be, I could see a tier or two below some names, but I couldn't find that tier of player that I truly believe might actually get moved.
So my immediate response to this question was just that the Trae Young situation seems super weird right now.
Yeah.
Like there's been no news about really any extension, like anything really right now. And, a week ago, it was reported by Jake Fisher. Yet league sources tell me that there are no plans for Young and the Hawks to engage in extension talks this summer. This, though, does not come as necessarily a surprise. Sources say Young's side has actually been resigned for some time to the prospect of seeing out the final guaranteed year on his current contract rather than securing an extension. They've built this team in like such a perfect way around Trae, right? Like if you're going to build a team around Trae Young, you go get a floor spacing big, you have a rim running big that you can bring in with the floor spacing big to play potentially, and Onyeka Okongwu. You have a ton of long athletic wings like Ricochet and Dyson Daniels and all those guys. And that's kind of how you make it work, right?
And you have secondary ball. You don't have any necessarily primary ball handlers, but you have a bunch of secondary ball handlers and guys that can do stuff like that. With Jalen Johnson can do some of that. Nikhil Alexander-Walker can do some of that. Luke Kennard can do some of that, while those guys also being able to play off the ball. Dyson Daniels can do that, while all of these guys can also play off the ball, and most of those guys can really defend as well.
Yeah. And to be clear, like, I think this might be the best team that Atlanta and Trae Young have had together, to be honest. Like, I think there's a real case for that. Anytime that like real money comes up though, and like real, extension talks don't happen seemingly, it feels like a real situation where something could get combustible, right? Like what if it gets back to his representation that there's another team, like say I'm not specifying this team necessarily. I'm just saying, look, they have a bunch of young players, a bunch of young picks. Like, what if Utah says, hey, we're willing to pay Trae Young his max? Like, what if it gets back to his representation and Trae's reps are like, hey, trade us to Utah, man?
That would really be frustrating just as somebody that wants to see this team. And I'm not the biggest Trae Young fan, but I'm also somebody that understands he does drive this offense. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing I'm getting back from Utah that's going to immediately replace what I just put together. I just find it hard to believe. I find it hard to not see this play out. And it may not work to the heights that, honestly, I think it might. Like, spoiler, I have him as the 4 seed in the East in my rankings right now. And it would be hard for me to justify moving the most important offensive piece of that puzzle. Now, I think the bet would then be on Jalen Johnson taking another huge leap forward, because that dude, I think people may have, that dude was awesome pre-injury. Yeah. But until I saw some more of that and where the heights are for that, I couldn't move him. This one would really stun me, but I understand where you're coming from with it.
Look,
we're
we're trying to come up with something that's off the table right now.
Yeah.
And theoretically, this seems off the table. Like, there's no reason for them to trade Trae Young, in my opinion, unless they're just decided we're ending the Trae Young experience after this contract. And he's told us that he's not picking up his player option next year. And, we want to move him for whatever we can. Right. Like, I think that's a potential outcome at the very least.
Yeah. No, I think it's right to bring it up. It's right to bring it up. There's no question.
Like, it feels like a very complicated situation, and these things tend to come up when complicated situations arise, right? Just trying to think of teams again, right? I don't think Milwaukee has any mechanism to get him. I don't think Miami. I mean, maybe Miami, if they're just like, screw it, we just want to pair him and Bam, right? But I don't see that as a fit necessarily. I mean, beyond that, I think it gets really tricky to find the landing spot. And in fact, I would just straight up say I don't know what the landing spot would be, other than Brooklyn. Brooklyn, I think at any point could decide to cash in its chips a little bit and just go, okay, we're doing this. We're just going to go get a star now and figure things out. It'd be a hell of a choice for Brooklyn to take 4 on-ball players out of 5 first-round draft picks and then trade for Trae Young. Doesn't really make sense, but you just never know, I think. But look, they have 1 million draft picks still, and they're trying to build a long-lasting contender. So maybe something like that. And then the other team is, I think Mikey, did a good job here again.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Toronto, Jake Fisher just reported that Toronto is going to be very heavily involved in the trade picture all year, right? So you're telling me that you could do something like, Trae Young for Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, and a bunch of picks. I'm literally just spitballing, right? I'm not saying that that's even a good deal. But, I would want probably other things if I'm Atlanta and not just those two. But, I don't know. There's stuff there, it feels like.
No, Raptors were the first. So I did a list of teams and a list of players, and the Raptors were the first team on my list, and I just wrote consolidation trade. The Raptors and the Mavericks were the first 2 teams that came to mind without going through I went through every single roster today, to prepare for this, but they were the first 2 teams I wrote down even before that, because Toronto, I think, is prime for a consolidation trade, and Dallas is prime for a rebalance of the roster type trade.
Yeah, but Toronto's getting Kyrie back at some point, and like Kyrie
Dallas.
and Trey can't play together. Sorry.
No. I'm not saying Dallas for Trey. I was just saying in general, just like in general.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
Yeah.
saying.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, like the other name that immediately came to mind for me was Lowry.
Yeah.
Is there any deal out there where you could convince Utah to move off of Lowry? I think they would still put like an exceptionally high premium on Lowry. If you made me bet. Lowry likes being in Utah, which is like a whole other conversation because like it's just not for everybody there. It feels like one of those deals where everybody who ends up going to Utah like tends to be good with Utah and like being there for the time that they're there. But I think that people don't like see it as a destination is maybe the fairest way to put it, right? Like, teams don't, their players don't get there, but once they get there, they're like pretty happy with being there. Lowry, seems very happy to be in Utah. So, getting a guy that's happy to be there is pretty positive in my opinion. But look, like they're so young. They are laughably young. They either need to like move some of these guys and go in with Lowry, or they need to move Lowry and go all in with the young. Like being in the middle like this with Lowry is really tricky, I think.
Yeah, I had Toronto as a team for him as well. I had Miami if they wanted to make a big move, and I don't think this team it would do it at this point right now, but if Trajan wanted to go ahead and make a move on a second star in Detroit, if he was a name that Pistons fans always love to bring up.
Detroit was one that I thought about for Lowry, to be honest, and I kind of love it, honestly.
Sure.
Like if you told me it was like Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, and I don't know, man. Like picks, like Tobias, Jaden picks, and something.
Yeah,
that's actually pretty interesting to me.
Because if I'm Detroit, I'm keeping Asar, and I'm not like just because if I'm making the move on Lowry, I'm trying to win now. I'm also keeping Stewart because I think he's a playoff. I got to keep a core of players intact. And J.I. is probably the most obvious name because, if Lowry's coming in to be the number 2 scorer option, all of that, like J.I. being that or not being that no longer matters as much, probably. But I want to keep the defensive infrastructure of Asar Thompson, of Isaiah Stewart. Yeah, so it'd be interesting.
Yeah. I'm just like even trying to figure out if you can make the math work without sending.
I wondered if you could even do it without Stu.
Right now, I'm not sure that you can. I mean, you could do it, I think, if you did Harris, Ivy, Holland, but I don't think they're going to want to do that either because Holland was the guy, obviously, that they picked. This front office specifically picked. I do think that Duren would also work, but you already have Kessler there. So, like, that's another one where it's kind of like, what's the point? Basically in doing that. The math gets hard, I think, on this right now. Sure. Actually no, the math is doable here. I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Okay,
so you could do Harris, Ivy, Sasser, and that gets the money there.
Okay,
financially,
and then the picks,
and then a bunch of picks.
Yeah, which they just got.
That actually might be that might be the one that I think makes sense.
Sure.
Like if we're looking at a, surprise, this came out of nowhere star trade, and that's the whole point of this is like, we're not saying this is going to happen, but like if we're trying to pick a, what the fuck just happened, like how did this happen deal? Yeah. Honestly, Lowry for Tobias, Jaden Ivey, Marcus Sasser, and like a couple of first round picks kind of feels pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think where I think it comes out of is, like, okay, we're not going to get Ivy at the number we want, even if it's, it could be as much of that as it is, quote unquote, belief in what he is as a player or whatever, like if Ivy's demanding a certain number that they don't necessarily want to go to, maybe you just go get the proven guy, even though that it's at a crazy number. So I don't know. It would shock me, but it's not out of the realm.
And Lowry feels like one of those players right now that's like a bit polarizing. Like teams are either going to think that last year was like a total aberration, or they're going to worry about like, whether or not it was like a real downgrade in terms of what he's capable of. In that respect, I actually think Eurobasket will be fairly important for Lowry to like, and for Utah, frankly, to like show what Lowry is still capable of. Yeah, will be very interesting. I wonder though if there's some synergy between a Lowry deal somewhere before the season starts. Sure. I'm not saying that that's like definitely happening. In fact, if you made me bet, I would say it doesn't happen. But again, I will just note that in each of the last 3 years, we have gotten a September or an October surprise that nobody has really seen coming at the time. I don't think people would look at a Lowry deal as being like totally out of left field, right? But we didn't see the Lillard or Mitchell deals as being totally out of left field either. It was just the timing more than anything that was a bit bizarre.
Yeah, no, it would be fun. Again, I was trying to find the names that I really liked and thought were realistic. I have a list of names, but I don't know how much I believe in most of them, and they're not that level of players. Before
we got here, give me a couple of them.
Okay, so we talked extension conversations. Like, I think this one would be a shocker. Tyler Hero.
Yeah, I mean, Miami is like clearly trying to do stuff right now. Like they got out of the tax with the Haywood Highsmith deal, obviously. So like they might not feel like they're really in the ballpark right now. And Hero has 2 years left and is extension eligible here coming up. So maybe if Hero, maybe they don't want to do an extension and Hero gets frustrated. Okay.
So that was one name. So I assuming this is correct on Spotrac, Drew Holiday is actually trade eligible again on September 7th. Is there any way that Portland doesn't keep him around, or somebody else would come in for an offer with Drew Holiday?
It would be very strange to me.
Yeah.
Given that they like specifically went out to acquire him.
Yeah.
But like maybe they didn't see the Lillard thing coming.
So that was my thing, right? It was like, okay, that came after the fact and all of that. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, maybe like man, it's hard because like I can see them doing like some sort of move, but I just don't know what it is yet, kind of thing. What other names do you have?
I mean, the normal Simons, Vooch. We've already talked Jaden Ivey, Colin Sexton. We did the Lou Dort thing already whenever we were talking Cason Wallace. Would it be correct that Jalen Green has no trade restriction? Because it doesn't have one on Spotrac.
I'm not sure, honestly, but it'd be surprising to see him get moved, I think, at this point. I don't know who's going to want that deal.
So I was just trying to think of like, oh my gosh, this like it would truly shock us. But it's like, what if Phoenix was like, no, this isn't going to work. We don't like it. We're going to move him for that. Would just be like you say, that would just end up being really bad value all around, though. All the Kings guys already mentioned. We've mentioned the Mavericks guys plenty.
Yeah.
The
Kings guys, like would Sabonis? I guess Sabonis is a big name. Like if that was to somehow happen.
Yeah, like Levine, Sabonis, DeRozan were all ones. The other one,
I don't know what a Sabonis team would be though. Like, is that like a Golden State idea?
Yeah, that one's
like
tough.
they don't have the money to do that. I don't think so. Yeah. Like that, and by money I mean like flexibility away from the second apron to do that. So that doesn't totally track for me. I don't know who the Sabonis team would be, honestly.
Yeah. The other just outlandish one I came up with was Gobert. But Minnesota would have to completely change identity, and they're not going to do that. So
yeah, I'd be pretty stunned by that. I think
just
they kind of made that. I think when they went down the road with KD, they probably made that decision to.
Yeah, it was just you gave Naz Reid the contract, you drafted Jan Berenger. A lot of the things I wanted to come up with are that's not going to happen right now. That's going to happen at the deadline or next offseason or something like that. So,
yeah, Sabonis to Chicago or Charlotte, those are probably the two teams where you could make the case for it, I guess. I mean, Charlotte, they just have a million draft picks, so pick and choose your young players, I guess, and then throw Bridges and Sexton the other way to make the money work, right? That would be the vision. And then you have Sabonis and Brandon Miller and LaMelo and Khan and those guys. That's not. I mean, I'm not truly a Sabonis guy at that number, but whatever. Vooch and a bunch of young, interesting things for Sabonis in picks, not impossible, I guess.
Yeah. He was definitely a name I had.
Yeah. And if I'm the Kings, I might want to try to move Sabonis now before you fully start a rebuild. And I don't know if they're going down that road, but I might try to move Sabonis before you fully start a rebuild to get full value. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That feels too difficult to construct though. The Lowry one feels like the easiest one to do.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna get one, I think that would be my answer. I think my real answer though is and this was a fun exercise because it's happened each of the last 3 years, right? So it is worth talking about. I think my answer though is that no, we don't get a big star trade.
Sure. Yeah, I think
in training camp.
I think I'm like I said, I went through every single team today, tried to be creative and think outside the box and be willing to consider things. And I didn't feel super comfortable dropping any names outside of Lowry and, Trey. Obviously, we talked about that. I didn't even love the idea of the Kings guys because I feel like they are going to try to win with the team as constructed. So it really was if I had to put money on a name, I think it would be Anthony Simons.
I think that's the most likely one for sure. If somebody gets moved Simons, it would track that's the guy.
Yep. Or maybe one of the Mavs guys. I think one of the Mavs guys would be whether it was hey, they decided they could move Gafford because you have Lively and then you're going to play 80 minutes at the 5, or more likely maybe you move PJ Washington. Those ones I don't think are as I'm not as sure about because I don't know what Dallas is thinking, but those ones just make so much sense to me, especially PJ. We've talked about this multiple times.
No, that makes sense. Okay, Bryce. The reason we did this is because I am going on vacation coming up here. We have recorded 4 podcasts for while I'm out on vacation over the next 2 weeks.
You guys are going to yell at us a lot.
I don't think it's that bad, but maybe they will. The first 3 episodes, starting on Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, these episodes will go up, are our top 25 defenders in the NBA. Very excited to share this with you. We voted. We did a whole thing. We broke down what makes these guys special on defense. We kind of got into the nerdy weeds. We had a great time.
Yes.
We had a very, very fun time.
Yes, we did.
To the point where I wonder if we do this every year, to be honest.
I'm in.
We would have to figure out if there's going to be enough differentiation.
Oh, true.
But
yeah.
So that's the plan. The first 3 will be top 25 defenders in the NBA. Then the 4th one is a 2020 redraft. So we went through we talked about 2020, the draft there. It was really fun. We had a great time. And, talked about that draft being, maybe a little bit better than people expected, but still like a very below average draft at the end of the day. And kind of talk through picks and players and everything like that. So that was really fun. I will be back on the next Sunday. I'm hoping that there will be deals that have occurred that we can talk about and like maybe discuss and figure it out. Maybe we get another, Donovan Mitchell type deal in September. I think that happened on like September 3rd or 4th or something. Maybe we get another one like that in terms of timing. Right. So excited to talk through that. Excited to break down kind of everything that happens while I'm gone. Hopefully there's enough that happens in 2 weeks to where we're not scrambling again for content whenever that happens. But we appreciate all of you immensely for coming to hang out. We're up over 65,000 subscribers over on YouTube, which is a fucking bonkers number. Makes no sense to me whatsoever, but I can't emphasize enough how much like Bryce, Andrew, and I, like we appreciate you guys so much for coming to hang out, coming to rock with us. It's just been such a fun thing to grow this channel over the last, really like 3 years, I guess, but it's really kind of exploded over the last year with Bryce and I. So appreciate you all immensely for coming to hang out. We'll be back, on Sunday with content for you guys, but it will not be a live show. It will be we have pre-recorded these things.
It will play off live, but it will not be us there. So whenever you yell at us in the comments for what we chose to do, we'll have to see after the fact. But yeah, these were a lot of fun. I'm excited for them to drop, and I'm truly excited for the feedback and on all of them. But especially the defensive ones, that was a fun project that was impossible to do, but I'm glad we did it. So
yeah, and like I think that the way we framed it was right too. And we'll talk about that again at the front where, of that episode we did already. The thing that is really important to know with those rankings is like schematically, everyone runs such different things on defense, and defense is so much more of like a team game that, the way that you see, for certain defender is somewhat dependent on what he has around him. Right. So it's a very complicated conversation on defense. And we try to like dig into the nuance and the weeds and why we have certain guys the way we do. So yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah. At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Substack. Pistons Pulse podcast, I will shout it out one more time. I recorded with my former head coach, Jeff Jones, on Tuesday night. Go check that out on the Detroit Free Press YouTube channel. We didn't talk about the Pistons at all, guys. We talked about his playing career. We talked about him guarding Michael Jordan in the ACC Conference Finals. Roy Williams called him during the middle of the recording. He did not answer, but that would have been sick if he would have. We talked about him meeting with Rick Carlisle this past season and some insight into that team. He gave his thoughts on the current state of NIL. We gave perspective on a parent raising young athletes in today's, ecosystem environment. It's just like, it's a basketball podcast. And I think you guys would truly enjoy it if you like this podcast. So go check that out. It's out on Apple, Spotify as well. But a really fun one. And then he talks about me playing for him and my couple years for him. You guys can find out whether I was good at defense or not if you listen all the way till the end. So go check that out. Otherwise, Game Theory Podcast here with Sam Vecenie.
Yeah, we will. I will definitely be listening to that just to find out how the defense went more than anything.
Yeah,
that'll be enjoyable. Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. Again, like I'm out for 2 weeks, so we're not going to have a ton going on over there for me, but I have a ton of great colleagues that will be releasing work and are going to do a great job over there while I'm gone. That's all we've got here. So until next time, we'll talk soon.